why don't we get started? So we've got a lot of people joining us here. That's great. Okay.
It's fun. It's fun to see Stefano, which is just 5 kilometers away from here on Zoom.
This is the only way you can see him, right? You can't visit him, right?
The magical technology.
Well, actually, here the situation is not that good as in the US, unfortunately.
Right.
I believe this is going to be the last real tough months, so we need to hold up, and then we'll see what happens. I hope that there's a plan of vaccination now, and I hope that the government, which is brand new, will respect the program. So we're all with our fingers crossed and see what happens next.
Yeah, all of us here hope for that as well. So, we all would like to travel there soon, but it's more important for you to, lead a normal life again. So we hope that happens soon. So
I'm glad to. I heard the Biden statement about the opportunity of coming in the US after May 15. This is a nice.
I haven't even heard that.
Sign of positive mood, which we need. Sometimes it's very important.
Absolutely. Okay. Why don't we get started and talk on the positives? So welcome everyone. This is our webinar on Nizza. We have two of the leading producers today, Stefano Chiarlo of the Michele Chiarlo Winery. Ciao, Stefano.
Ciao, Tom. Ciao to everyone.
And Luigi Coppo of the Coppo Winery. Ciao, Luigi.
Ciao, Tom. Ciao, everybody.
I'm looking forward to this, and I think everybody is. I also want to welcome the public relations people from Co-Brand, who's the importer of Michele Chiarlo wines in the United States, Jenica O.C. and Diana Zahuranek. I hope I said that right, Diana. And then also Rebecca Hopkins from Folio, who's the importer of the Coppo wine. So I want to welcome them and thank them for their help with this. Before we talk about Barbera and about Nizza, I saw a quote on your website, Luigi, and it has to do with something that I saw this real quick doing the research for this webinar, and I thought this is perfect. It's about how so many of us, whether you're making wine or whether I'm writing about wine or teaching about wine or any of us dealing in the wine industry or whatever industry, after maybe 15, 20, 30 years, we think we know everything. And then I read this quote, and Luigi, I'm sure you know the quote, "Chi conosce il vino deve ancora nascere," which in English means those who truly know wine have yet to be born. And that was by Piero Coppo. Was Piero your grandfather? Or?
Yes, Piero was my great-grandfather and the founder of the winery. Okay. So he was a sort of claim. Probably back then it was not known as claim, but okay. Yes.
I just love that quote because it just shows you, we all kind of start out, we all think we know a lot, and then you realize after a number of years, you really are still learning every day. So this is one of the reasons why we do these webinars. It's a great way to learn about our subjects. So let's start out before we talk specifically about Nizza, and specifically about Barbera d'Asti. Stefano, you make wine in both Asti province and the Alba province, and it's of course Barbera is just from Asti for you. But tell us why Asti is so special. Why it's so special for Barbera? What makes it different from Barbera d'Alba?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. That the Asti region, especially the south of Asti region, is where is born the idea of Barbera more than 400 years ago, and for different reasons. For my opinion, obviously, Barbera is a variety, indigenous variety that need this kind of microclimate that are in this kind of hillside in continental weather, especially summertime, that are dry and warm, and in September there is a big difference in terms of temperature between night and day. But what is really special is the composition of the soil. In the Asti region, there are a poor soil because indigenous variety Barbera, in generally speaking, is a is a generous quantity in terms of kilo, in terms of pound of quantity, and in this soy is much more moderate the quantity, and the character of the soy give a very important influence to the character to the Barbera wine. This is also where another important thing is that the best exposition of the hillside are only for Barbera grape variety, and that's, for example, doesn't happen in the Langhe region or in other part of the Piedmont hillside, because in the Langhe the most important variety is Nebbiolo. There is also a good tradition about Barbera in the Langhe region, but obviously the most expensive grape, expensive wine are dedicated to the Nebbiolo grape. But the real big difference in terms of personality give the, for my opinion, the composition of the soil. In the Barbera, in the Asti region, is a sedimentary origin, are much more, the composition of the soil much more rich of sand and lime, and is very poor soil, with the percentage of calcareous about 7 to 8%, and give a lot of fruitness, a lot of energy in terms of acidity, but also in terms of silky and the potential to age a lot. In the Alba region is much more spicy, much more powerful, but for my opinion, generally speaking, have not this kind of exactly detail about the red fruit like in the Asti region, and this kind of capacity to have a long evolution like in the Asti region.
Okay, Luigi, let me ask you, both of you produce Nizza as well as other examples of Barbera d'Asti, and before we talk about the differences of those wines, let me first ask you, 2021, how has the weather been? How are you looking for the growing season?
2021, well, actually right now, I mean, here it's pretty warm right now. So it's early, of course, to predict how the harvest will be. So we have not a that cold winter as, for instance, 2020 or 2019. We're in the blooming. I mean, some vineyards are about to bloom, of course, now.
Okay.
It's promising well, of course. I mean, I really hope that. Honestly speaking, it's very early to say, but since 10 days, we've seen temperature increasing, so it's really warming up. Then we will have probably in April some rain, so we hope also that we can have some rain. You know, it is important, and then we'll see what happens, of course.
Okay. Let me also, if you could just add a few words to the question I asked Stefano just a few minutes ago about what makes Asti so special for Barbera. So
I agree 100% on what Stefano said. So you know, this is a kind of question that it's asked pretty much, and because it's very interesting. Of course, you experienced many times, as Stefano said, there is a long tradition of Barbera d'Alba as well. A lot of producer, almost every producer that produce Barolo or Barbaresco does have in their portfolio a Barbera d'Alba as well. So I always like to say that there is one mother with different kids. So basically, you know, right. I like this expression in terms that, of course, the Asti region is the one where two main variety are very well known. So Barbera, of course, and also Moscato. So all the best vineyards in this area here are dedicated to Barbera. So it really makes sense for us to have more power, as Stefano said, more a distinct character in terms of fruitness, and of course it comes down all about soil. So soil, it's what really matters. We have clay and marl and a nice percentage of sand here, which makes the Asti region, specifically the south part of the Asti region, one of the most vocated, probably the most vocated area in Piemonte for making great Barbera, capable to age also over the years. So this is always, this has always been the biggest challenge. I think I can speak on behalf of Stefano as well. We both produce Barbera that can age for several years. So if you open a bottle of Pomoroso, or if you open a bottle of La Courte, even after 10, 15 years, it's stunning. So it's beautiful. Barbera does have that great acidity, and probably it's also one of the biggest distinction between Alba and Asti. I believe that in the Asti region, the acidity of Barbera it's pretty pronounced in the beginning, and this, of course, it's good and bad. So it's hard to manage. It's very important to know how to manage the acidity and the picking time, the picking the grape at the right ripeness. It's very important, but in the long run, it makes a big difference, because of course you can have wine with backbone capable to age over the year.
Okay, I'm going to put up a picture. Let's define now the Nizza area, and there are 18 communes, if I'm correct, that comprise the Nizza production zone. This is a picture that I took probably about 10 years ago when I was there, but you'll recognize it right away. This is Castelnuovo Calcea, right?
Yes.
We both have vineyards in this commune. I don't know if they're in that picture, but
Yeah.
Let me also take that picture down for a second, and we'll put up a map here so we can define, whoever wants to talk about the actual area itself. But here's a map of the Nizza production zone. So if you could talk about this.
Mm-hmm. So
Asti are we in? Now Nizza is named for Nizza Monferrato, which is one
yes.
of the, okay.
I mean, the Nizza communes give the name to the appellation. So as you said, it's 18 villages only. So just thinking about, about the Barbera d'Asti, which is over 160, I believe 167. Probably Stefano could be more precise on that. Yeah. Nizza, I like to say it's like the filet mignon of Barbera d'Asti, of the area. So it's 18 villages only around Nizza Monferrato, which gives the name of the appellation, of course. My vineyards are all in the west side of the appellation. So basically in 3 different communes, Castelnuovo Calcea, which is the one you mentioned, Agliano Terme, and Nizza Monferrato as well.
Okay. And Stefano, you have vineyards also here in Castelnuovo Calcea. How many hectares of vineyards do you have in the Nizza zone?
Yes, now we have about more than 20 hectares of Nizza vineyard between Castelnuovo Calcea and Agliano Terme. Yeah, but the heart, the most important part is in Castelnuovo Calcea, where is based the La Courte estate, and where we produce our Nizza Reserve La Courte and our Nizza Cipressi.
Okay.
This is, like said Luigi, the Nizza area is the heart of the Asti, of the Barbera, in terms of historicity, in terms of reputation, and in terms of also the project about the appellation Nizza, because the idea behind has historic roots, but is a new appellation that was projected for have the appellation with a great character of the terroir and the potential to age a lot.
Okay, I want to focus, and I'll put up photos of your estate and also Luigi's vineyards in a few minutes, and we'll talk about those specifically. But I want to go back to why this was created. You said it's like, I like Luigi's quote about the filet mignon of Asti, but when you start to learn, anyone starts to learn about the red grapes of Piemonte, of course, it's Nebbiolo is always the king, the most regal wines, and Barbera is sort of this everyday, just simple wine you have at lunch, and it wasn't until 25 years ago that anybody really thought much about it, at least in terms of people who don't live there. I'm sure, all of you thought Barberas were special, but did that have something to do with the creation of Nizza, just that the image of Barbera needed to be strengthened, needed to be improved?
Yes, I believe the Barbera have the perception of the people is that you said that is a everyday very good wine. In the past, it was a very rustic wine. So the big job that we made in the last 30 years, all the producers are to reducing the rusticity in terms of silky expression of the Barbera. And but also the idea of Nizza is that Barbera, we know that is a wine that you can produce a Barbera, very good wine to drink every day,
right.
but important wine to have to wait minimum 2 or 3 years before arrive to the top in terms of complexity and balance in the mouth and the potential to age a lot. For this reason that we changed the name of Barbera, we have the name of the territory, Nizza, because it's a totally different expression of the variety. It's like, for example, in Tuscany, with the Sangiovese grape, you produce a Chianti or a Brunello, the same variety,
right.
You have totally different
expressions,
project in the vineyard, project in the winery, but the perception of the people. If you want a Sangiovese to drink young, your choice is a Chianti. If
right.
you want a Sangiovese with a great complexity, power to age a lot, especially the terroir influence, you choose a Brunello di Montalcino. And that is the idea, because you have a reason. When the people that speak about Barbera, generally speaking, have only this kind of idea on the market. Barbera is a very good wine to drink every day with a very food-friendly wine to drink with. But in Italy, there is, especially in Piedmont, in Lombardy, there is a culture about the great Barbera, like a complex wine for have a long evolution. And for this idea that with the name of Nizza, there is this kind of project that put together a lot of producers in the last 15 years.
Luigi, let me ask you about the history of Nizza. When was this idea created? What was the first vintage that we saw?
So actually, the idea of making Nizza was started in the late 90s, beginning of 2000, with a group of producers, which is known as l'Associazione dei Produttori del Nizza. So basically it means the association of Nizza's producer. We were both, Coppo and Chiarlo, there since day one. So we both wineries were really believing in this project since day one. We believe that much in Barbera that even before of Nizza, Coppo, Chiarlo, and other wineries made a special Barbera, which was known as Quorum, which was a very important project. Which was a very important project that allowed all wineries to understand the potential of Barbera based on every winery's experience. So the project of Barbera of Nizza was started in the end of 90s, beginning of 2000, and was a pretty interesting path, of course, that became an independent appellation in 2014. So you'll see the first Nizza label as Nizza DOCG since July 1st of 2016 because of the minimum aging of Nizza. The first day that we could finally sell Nizza as Nizza DOCG was in 2016. So as Stefano said, it's the newest designation in Piemonte about red wine. It's the newest designation, but I would say, in the other hand, with a lot of history. That history is brought into the project by wineries that has been invested in this variety over the last 40, 50 years.
Okay.
So that was how the Nizza project was created. And the goal, of course, of the Nizza was try to bound a specific area with a specific variety and call that wine as the most important area for Barbera. So Nizza Monferrato has always been known as one of the most important city for Barbera. We have evidences that Barbera was planted in Nizza Monferrato since the 13th century.
Oh.
So really, really, it's deep rooted in our area. And even in the 30, in the 40, the common sense in the area, it was that usually the Barbera that comes from the area of Nizza, around Nizza, as Castelnuovo, as Agliano, as Monbercelli, as Moasca, all those little villages that are not that far from Nizza, usually were known as the top quality Barbera. And you know, Tom, that back in the days, there was a lot of negociant, and you know, there was a lot of trade in terms of grapes, and usually the most expensive grape was coming from that area. So in the common sense, it was always recognized as one of the top area for Barbera. Okay. And the reason why is goes back again to the vineyard. So all the best south, southeast, southwest exposed vineyards are dedicated to Barbera.
One point of clarification too, I'll put a label up, but I'm sure most people watching today know this, but just to make sure that emphasize it, the point is that the label now says Nizza. You do not have to put the word Barbera or Barbera d'Asti on there.
No, we do not need to do that. And it was, of course, a sort of discussion between producer, but we believe that it's a matter of time. We need a lot of education. So thank you very much, Tom, for doing this, because we need your help in terms to have more awareness on what Nizza is. So that's the reason why me and Stefano are always very happy to do as much education as possible. We've done several activities together, also in the US, about Nizza, and I hope that we can, do more activities in the next future. The reason is, again, we are very proud of Barbera, so we do not want to get rid of the name of Barbera, but we want to try to push the media. We're trying to push our buyers. We're trying to push our importers to let them understand that Nizza, first of all, is a specific area which is very important for Barbera. So as you have Barolo, as you have Barbaresco, Nizza stays to Barbera as Barolo stays to Nebbiolo. So that's the idea. And we know it will take time, but we're very confident because the average quality of wine over the years has been impressive.
Okay, there's the label of the La Corte Nizza from Chiarlo, which is actually a Reserva. So let's start talking about the estates. Let me take this label down for a second. We'll put up, Stefano, we'll start with you. Just before we talk about Nizza, you also make another Barbera d'Asti called Leorme, I'm correct?
Yes.
What's the difference? I know it's a much less expensive wine and a much more, approachable wine when it's young. Tell us about the differences of that wine versus your examples of Nizza.
Yeah, our Barbera d'Asti Leorme is our most produced wine for the winery. Is the real expression of the Barbera d'Asti in terms of classicity, in terms of expression of the cherry, red fruit, medium body, very silky wine to drink in the first 4 or 5 years from the harvest, and is a very attractive wine. I love the Barbera d'Asti, especially because we are present in more than 65 countries, but what is really a winner wine is that also in the new market that doesn't have a wine knowledge about our appellation. Riorme is the first wine that all the people love because it's very fruity, very silky wine, and very easy to match with the indigenous cuisine. You know, in Vietnam or in Norway, or it's very food-friendly wine, and also is a wine with the character of the variety of Barbera. But like you said before, is a wine to drink in the first 4 or 5 years with a great pleasure, also in the summertime, because the acidity also help with match with several kind of food, with a good sandwich, also pasta with fish, but everything, 90% of the dish you can match with this kind of wine. This is a very eclectic variety, Barbera, especially when is have this kind of character, our Riorme or Avocata, that is the Barbera d'Asti from Coppo winery. I believe this is really a flagship of the winery, and is a very well example of the Barbera d'Asti wine, I believe.
Great. I'm glad to hear you make that comment about Barbera can go with like 95% of all foods, because it's not many wines can do that. So, but I think it's, like you said, because of the acidity. So that's something to remember as well. So let's talk now about your Nizza wines, and I'll put up a picture here of your vineyard for the single vineyard test. You could talk a little bit about that estate and about how old the vines are.
Yes, this farm is in Castelnuovo Calcea. I speak about La Courte Nizza Reserve. In this case, we use only the southwest vineyard that are more than 45 years old. And we, for have this kind of character to this wine, we reduce the quantity to very low, in terms of very low quantity. That means that remain less than 1 kilo for vine. That means about 5 small bunches, and reducing the yield with a green harvest, and obviously the old vineyard is a low quantity. You have more concentration in terms of ripeness, and you have more complexity in the wine. In our philosophy, we use only 50% of small French barrique, and the other 50% large wood. So after aging for 1 year in the wood, we blending, and we let to refinement in the bottle minimum 18 months without filtration or clarification. So it get out on the market like a Barbaresco, between a Barbaresco and Barolo, because it's minimum need 30 months after the harvest time, and have the arrive at the top, for my opinion, at 5 or 6 years after the harvest, and after you can keep for other 10 years or more, depend of the vintage, with a great surprise. Our first vintage was 96, and recently we have a vertical test, and we test 97 and 91 and 99. It was still a great wine. Obviously, depends what are you looking for. If you look still the fruit and the spice, the best age is between 6, 7 to 12, for my opinion. If you are looking for the spice, after 10 years, arrive the most spice influence to the wine.
I think that's one of the strongest identities we can give to Nizza, is that their ability to age. Because I think historically, and people have thought Barbera is a very simple wine. You drink it young, but I've had some of your colleagues, examples of Nizza as well, that are 10, 12 years old that are in beautiful shape. So what is the current vintage on Cipressi? Stefano, the current vintage of Cipressi is what?
The current vintage of La Courte now is...
No, the La Courte, not La Courte, but Cipressi.
Cipressi now is 2018.
Okay, and tell us about that vintage. I know that the decade has been relatively warm. How was 2018? The harvest, and was that a typical harvest? Was it early or late?
Yeah, generally speaking, the harvest of the Nizza grapes are in the middle of September, between 15 to 25 of September, before the Nebbiolo harvest that usually arrive in October. And 18 was in terms of range, we pick up the grapes in this range. There are other vintages, for example, 17, more dry or more warm during the summertime, that we anticipate the harvest time. That is very important thing in the Barbera vineyard, to have to check every 2 or 3 days the ripeness, because the risk is to, especially with the global warming, to have too much sugar and too much alcohol, you know,
right.
and lose the acidity. To have experience in every part of the vineyard, to exactly the date to pick up the grapes is very important for your style, because if you lose the acidity, you lose the attractivity. And to give an idea, during the harvest time, you can adding 1% of alcohol in 1 week and lose more than
Really?
2 grams in terms of acidity. So you have to pay a lot of attention and experience. Your experience in every vineyard is very, very important for keep your style in terms of the style of the wine. Okay. But we are also lucky that the weather situation was very good in the last 10 years, 15 years. And that's helped a lot in terms of general quality for every producer of Nizza, because Barbera love the warm, the dry situation, and they never suffer this kind of climate conditions. Okay. You have only to pay attention during the harvest time.
Okay. Luigi, let me ask you a little bit about that with climate change. The general way of thinking these days is that because Barbera has such high levels of acidity that it can withstand very hot years, such as 2017, for example. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree, yes. So basically, what we experienced over the last 10 years, that we have, as you said, a pretty warm decade. I would say that this helps Barbera in some way. I would say that probably we've changed our approach about agriculture, not only in the last decade, but I believe the very, very first vintage that was very warm was in 2003. Okay. I was not at the winery yet back then, so I do not have a direct experience with that. But I remember my uncle Roberto, who's in charge of the winemaking process, okay, telling me that it was the very, very first warm vintages. So since then, it's more about reaction to the weather than more. It's more important to react to the weather than before you could actually have some standard program. Okay, so now it's very, very interesting to see how the weather is changing. Of course, the alcohol, it's more than in the 80s or in the 90s, but as Stefano said, that add some body to the wine, and always it's very important to have the balance. So the picking time, it's the most important thing in the harvest. So and also this is an interesting topic. Back in the days, the fully south exposition were known as the best. Okay, now I would say that probably in the next 10 years we will need to reconsider this statement and not taking that as for granted as we used to. So for instance, I believe there's some east and west exposition that are very, very, very good. And for instance, if you take a look and if you read the regulation of Nizza, you can plant Barbera vineyards in the Nizza area between east and west, going through south, of course. So the climate is
sort of altitude. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I mean, the climate is changing, and we're approaching this change, of course, with not with anxious, but it's a challenge that we need to consider. And as Stefano said, and I really agree with that, it's all about the experience. More experience you have on a specific vineyard, more you know how to treat that vineyard right.
Okay. One other question, it's a little technical, but I think there's a number of people watching that are interested. But I talk with producers in the Langhe who are growing Nebbiolo, making Barolo, Barbaresco, and they talk now about not harvesting for sugar, but harvesting for phenolic ripeness to make sure the tannins are right.
Yeah,
produce a much better balanced wine, especially with hot weather. Yet with Barbera, of course, the tannins are so light. So what is the focus when you harvest?
For us, it's the acidity.
Okay.
I mean, it's the acidity. As I said that before already. It's the good and bad of Barbera. I mean, it's a positive thing if you're thinking about an age potential wine, but also you need to be very careful because acidity can be very high. So the focus in our opinion should be the acidity.
Okay, great. Stefano, let me go back to you. We'll continue with your other Nizza from La Corte. I'll put up a picture of the vineyard here. That's your most famous example of Nizza.
Cipressi, no?
No, the Cipressi we did. Let's talk about the La Corte.
Ah, okay. Yes.
Please tell us about that particular vineyard and about this wine.
Yeah.
Started making it.
Yeah, the La Corte is the because I speak about this wine that was the old vineyard age, part in the large wood, part in the barrique, and that is our first vintage was 96, and was really a small production that we produce only in the most important vintage in a small quantity.
There's a beautiful of the vineyard.
And is a Nizza Riserva. Nizza Riserva means that a minimum 30 months after the harvest, 1 year in the wood, part in the small wood, part in the large wood, and refinement minimum 18 months to 2 years in the bottle. So this is a wine that you can drink for minimum 15 years and really give a great satisfaction because a lot of people that never test important Barbera when in the blind tasting really are really surprised about the complexity and how is rich in terms of deepness in the test, and I believe is really something of special, La Corte, but all the Nizza Reserve, because it's really another part of the is a part of surprising Piemonte. Generally speaking, all the people, the wine lover for aging red wine, know very well Baron Barbaresco, but never know this kind of potential Nizza Riserva wine. And La Courte is a good example because it is a new appellation. We have a great experience about this wine because from 96 now we arrived to more than 20 vintages. But I believe this is what are the really surprising people for, especially wine knowledge, are really passionate about wine, especially when they have the opportunity to drink this wine after 10 years. He never understand what he have opportunity to understand how is the top expression of the Barbera variety that never imagined. And,
the current vintage on the La Courte is 2017. Is it correct?
2017, yes.
And tell us, and what is the oak regime? How long do you age the wine in oak? What type of barrels do you use?
The potential 17 is a minimum of 15 to 18 years, but also, for my opinion, 17 is really have the condition for have a very, very great character, a very great body, and 17 is the perfect weather condition for the Barbera because it's a dry during the summer. It's a very dry during the summer time. And when it's so dry, very sunny, and you have more concentration, and very is born very balanced and very silky because in some vintage you have to wait a little more for have more balance between acidity and body. But in 17 you can drink now and also a great potential to age a lot, for my opinion.
Okay, and with the La Courte, you age that only in barrique, or to use?
50, no, we made the vinification in the large wood for 20 days of maturation with the skins. 50% of the juice we aged in barrique and 50% in the large wood. After this year of aging in separate juice, we blend it together and we let 3 months in the stainless steel for natural sedimentation, no filtration, no clarification. We bought it and we stock refining in the bottle minimum 18 months to 2 years before release.
Okay.
So,
now, I'll get back to Luigi in just a minute, but we might as well finish with you because you make also an old vine. I'll put up the label here. So it's called La Courte. I have to find the name because it's not Vigne, the usual name, but it's
Vigna Veia.
Vigna Veia.
Okay, I have too many notes here. I'll put up that label. Stefano, tell us about the Vigna Veia.
Vigna Veia is the most is a very small vineyard that is less than 3 acres. Is the oldest vineyard in the La Courte estate, and we're producing only in the top classic vintage in terms of weather condition, and we get out in the market minimum at 6 years old from the harvest. And is another Nizza Riserva, and is a very low in terms of yield in the vineyard. And we aged 1 year more in the large wood, and we refine. The refinement is 3 years in total in the bottle before release. So our total production is 2,500 bottles, and we're producing 1 vintage in every 3, for give an idea. So is the idea to open minimum 1 hour 6 to 7 years to more than 15.
What's the current release on the Vigna Veia?
Now is 13. We're producing 2010 and 13. 13 is the second vintage, and next vintage is 2016. Okay. But we are is a few years.
And one last question. You said these are the oldest vines. How old are the vines?
That are planted 65 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And any problems with disease? I know Barbera sometimes is.
Yeah. We have 20% of the vine that are dead, but we won't keep very hard, and we still.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
exist.
but it's worth it when you open the bottle, I'm sure. So, Luigi, let's talk about your Pomoroso, your Nizza. I'll put up a picture here.
So Pomoroso is our one of our iconic Barbera, of course, for sure. So the first vintage was produced back in 1984. That was the first vintage. So 2021 will be our 36th vintage. So we were able to produce this wine almost every year. We jumped some vintages in 2002 and 1992. So Pomoroso is 100% Barbera, and it's Nizza, which comes from three different villages, so three different communes. Castelnuovo Calcea, of course, where we have the majority of our hectares, Agliano Terme, and Nizza Monferrato. So that's the reason why I like to say that Pomoroso represents for us the idea of a Nizza Classico, you know, so it's a sort of blend of different area, of different territory, all within the Nizza area, of course.
I have a picture up. Is Pomoroso from any of these vineyards? This picture?
I'm sorry, I'm with my mobile, so I need just to zoom.
This is from your website, so.
No, not from this picture. So let's say the Pomoroso vineyard in Castelnuovo Calcea are not far where we have our Cascina, which is actually where the farm is based. So and it's all southeast exposed. The oak regiment here, it's between 14 up to 18 months in French new oak. Okay. So small barrique, 225 liters each, and it's a medium toast oak. We use French oak from Burgundy. So, and we did not change this style since the first vintage. So since 1984, we believe that, you know, after years, we achieved a nice balance on this wine. So basically the idea is not releasing a wine which is over oaked, of course, but it's fine. Try to find a balance between acidity and, of course, tannins, power and elegance. So this is the biggest goal. And the current vintage on Pomoroso right now is 2017, which was a very interesting and I believe very good vintage for Barbera. It's known to be as a very warm vintage. I would like, you know, to put on the table a little topic here, which usually those vintages that are super good for Nebbiolo, it's not said that also are super good for Barbera and the other way around. So let's pick 2017. You know that 2017 was a challenge vintage for Nebbiolo, for instance.
Yes.
That did not happen for Barbera.
Okay.
Barbera was a very, very good vintage, and we realized that releasing our L'Avocata, which is our easygoing light body entry level, if you want to say that. I don't really like saying entry level wines, but it's our, let's say, everyday Barbera interpretation. And we realized that 2017 was a very good vintage by releasing the L'Avocata. Now we are with the Pomoroso, which we produce more or less 35,000 bottles per year. And I'm very excited about the 2017 vintage because I believe this kind of wine has a nice age potential, and it's now perfect to drink, but also capable to age over the year, pretty much.
On your comment about the vintages being good for one grape or another, can we say that Barbera, you know, we know there are problematic vintages for Nebbiolo because it can be too hot, but with Barbera, sounds like the only problem would be if it's too cold, the grapes don't get ripe enough. Is that
Correct. Barbera loves heat, so that's the basic rule. Barbera loves heat. Barbera loves high temperature. As Stefano said, it's very important then in the end of August, beginning of September, when we see some differences in terms of temperature between night and day, and of course this add to the wine. It's a sort of perfect storm. If all those combinations are there, we will have a great wine, and that's what happened, in my opinion, in 2017 for Barbera, specifically in the Nizza area.
You've been making Pomorosso since 1984, but the first
Yes.
you call it Nizza was 2016 vintage, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Now I understand. I'll put up a picture here. You have just started to make a limited amount of some new samples of Nizza. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So last year in October, we released 2 new single vineyard wine, which are known under the designation of Nizza, which is the name is Pontiselli, which is coming from the commune of Agliano Terme. Okay. And the other one is Brick del Marchese, which is coming from the commune of Nizza Monferrato. Riserva della Famiglia, also it's a Nizza, but it's our Nizza Riserva. As the Vigna Veia, it's produced only in very special vintages, and it's a single vineyard as well, coming from Castelnuovo Calcea. So you remember I told you that the Pomorosso, it's known to be our Nizza Classico. So basically the Nizza that should represent the 3 areas, so Agliano Terme, Castelnuovo Calcea, and Nizza Monferrato. Back in 1998, my dad and my uncles started to produce Riserva della Famiglia from Castelnuovo Calcea as a single vineyard. And since 2017, we completed our single vineyard approach in releasing last year in October 2020 those 2 new Nizza from Agliano, Pontiselli, and Brick del Marchese. The name of the wine was taken from the name of the area that Alessandro Masnaghetti gave to the crew, to the MGA, which are not official yet, on the Nizza map, which is a sort of brand new project. So, and my hope as a young wine producer is that other producers that have vineyards in the Brick del Marchese area or in the Pontiselli area will make some Nizza and call it as Pontiselli and Brick del Marchese.
And you mentioned it's not official yet, these crews, these single vineyards, but
no, those are not officials yet.
Or is that something that's going to happen?
Well, actually, the association of Nizza producer is working very hard on that, and of course it takes time. I believe it's very important that the first that need to believe in this ambitious and important project are producers, and we want to give our contribute on that, releasing 2 new single vineyard wine, very limited production, as you said, is 2,000 bottles each only. So we have here in the cellar already the 18 and 19 of that. So it's not only an important wine for us, but also it's a very important message that the designation is going deep, and we'll really drill down the knowledge of our territory.
Great. I have one question here. I'm going to ask one of the people watching, Rebecca Hopkins, who's with Folio. I had left a question for if she could put in the chat box the retail prices on your wines. I'll mention those in a minute, but let me get to this question first. This is from Jess Have. I'm going to mispronounce his name, I'm sure, but he wants to know, this is for both of you, can your wines be ordered for delivery on the European continent? And in his case, he's talking about Luxembourg.
Yes.
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 Okay. That's all we need.
They can direct message us, and we will arrange the shipment.
Great. pricing. So your Cipressi in the United States is suggested retail. This comes from Diana at Ironic at Co-Brand. I thank her for this. $26.99. For the LaCourte is $54.99, and the LaCourte Viña is $64.99. So just to put those in perspective, Luigi, what are we looking at in terms of the Pomoroso?
Pomoroso, it would be around, 55-ish, more or less.
Okay.
Depends on markup, but usually it's between 50 and 55 retail. And the two new single vineyards wine are not available in the US market yet, because of course, as I said, they were literally just released, so probably they're in transit.
Okay.
But I would say that probably retail, that would be between 60 and 70.
Okay, fair enough. We have the last 4 minutes here. Let me just ask, you have to do this. Stefano, you brought up food before, so let's talk about Nizza in particular. What are your favorite foods with that? I saw a thing on one of the websites about agnolotti del Plin. Is like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, Tom. You are an authentic Piemontese guy, because you know very well what the Piemontese family love to drink with the Great Barbera, and the agnolotti, especially with the roasted sauce, salsa d'arrosto.
Sure.
But for example, I love much more the Great Barbera, the Great Nizza wine with the tagliolini with tartufo, for example, because Barbera is a very soft and fruity expression, and truffle is more spicy and very. So I prefer to match with the truffle, the white truffle, also with the Great Barbera, because for not have also the confusion in terms of aroma for Nebbiolo that is spicy with the truffle that is another spicy aroma, for example.
Luigi, what are your favorites, and how would you compare a young release of your Pomoroso versus an older release that's maybe 12, 15 years old? How would you differ the food pairing?
Well, I like the young the young Pomoroso, for instance, is the current vintages with a nice seasoned cheese. I think blue cheese Gorgonzola is one of my favorite, fresh or more seasoned, depends. It's beautiful. Barbera, as you said, it's food friendly. The acidity cleans your palate, and you're willing to have a second glass, which it's always very important in my opinion. And if you go back like 15, 20 years, of course you deserve more complex and probably more delicate dish, in my opinion. So I would say that we have the veal cheek braised. It's one of my favorite, what is called brasato here. I'm sure you had it before.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite pairing with some old vintages of Nizza, for sure.
Okay, great. We're just about out of time, and I may be biased when I say this, but I don't think I could have found two better people to talk about how beautiful Nizza is, and they share their passion and their insight. So you two make a great team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great ambassadors for Nizza. So I learned a lot today, and I like the opening quote about people don't know everything about wine, haven't been born yet. So we're all learning a lot. And Nizza, as you said, Stefano, before, you need to do a lot more promotion, get people excited about this wine. So hopefully this will help. So
thank you very much, Tom, for having us. Thank you.
Luigi, thank you, Stefano.
Thank you, Tom, and I hope to see you as soon as possible in Piemonte directly to have a nice restaurant experience together with Luigi and visit together.
You're talking about how the specific type of agnolotti del Plano is making my mouth water. I'm very hungry now. So, in Chicago, so I can't have that, but I can think about it anyway. It's a good thought. So, but thank you. I hope to see both of you again real soon.
Thank you, Tom. Take care.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao.